Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
Jack Stern, Milwaukee Brewer beat writer for Brewer Fanatic, also host of the Brewer Fanatic podcast, joining us here this morning. Jack, a big thanks for taking some time and talking with us up here in the Chippewa Valley.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Hey, 2 weeks into the season now with this Brewers team. What's been your initial thoughts so far from what you've seen from this team?
I think the thing that I keep going back to so far is that they have something that last year's team seemed to have, which is resiliency, and that's kind of what the theme has been for the Pat Murphy team so far. This is a Brewers team that was tested quite a bit last year with injuries and with not always being in the most favorable position, and they got hit really hard with that early on this year as well. I mean, everybody knows just how rough that start was for them in New York, as well as that home opener against Kansas City. So tested immediately on that front, tested immediately with almost the entire starting rotation going down due to injury by the end of that first full week of the season. So immediate test for this team, and they've bounced right back with a couple of good series, finishing off that homestand and then going into Colorado with a chance for a sweep tonight. So they've bounced back, and I think that's the big thing to take away so far. Otherwise, it is still pretty early. It's hard to read into too much of what you see yet, but I think that's just a broader takeaway you can have right now. They've already been able to bounce back from some pretty challenging circumstances, which definitely bodes well for the outlook for the rest of the year.
Jack, Brice Turang, Jackson Churio, and Sal Frelick have been off to really good starts offensively for this team. But for Brice Turang, who we've been talking about quite a bit this morning, just how impressive is it for him to see this start, considering the amount of left-handed pitching he's also seen so far?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at what he's done so far this year, I don't think we've ever really quite seen any stretch like this from him. We've seen him get on hot streaks before, but it's always looked a little bit different than it does right now. So right now, he's really driving the ball more than we've ever seen in the big leagues, and that now includes against left-handed pitching. At Coors Field earlier this week, he hit his first career big league home run off a left-handed pitcher, and it was almost 450 feet off the bat. So he's really hitting the ball with authority now, and that's not something we've seen before. He's made some changes to the stance. He's swinging the bat a little bit harder. The contact point's a little bit different now. All of these things that are combining to help him drive the ball with a little bit more authority. So a new look from Brice Turang this year, but the key for him has really just always been, we know how good the glove is. It's just a matter of how much offense is he able to pair with that. And right now, this is a little bit of a different version of him than we've ever seen before, in a good way.
We're going to see Quinn Preester on the mound today, new pitcher coming over. What were your thoughts on when that trade was first announced and reported, and what type of pitcher should we expect to see with him?
I think some people, when they saw that announced, thought that maybe this was, I don't want to say a desperation move from the Brewers, but a move where maybe they overpaid in response to the current situation they're in with the pitching injuries. I'm not sure that's really the case. I think this obviously is partially a move geared toward just filling some innings right now and trying to plug a stopgap into that rotation. But at the same time, Quinn Preester has a former first-round pedigree as a draft prospect. He comes with 6 full years of club control because he hasn't even pitched a full season in the big leagues yet. So I think this is just as much, if not more, a long-term move for them. And it also happens to, in their mind, potentially help them out right now for a couple weeks while they're waiting for some injured starters to come back. As far as the outlook for him generally, I'm not entirely sold that this is going to be a guy who they can get a ton of production out of. I'm not really a big fan still of the fastballs in that arsenal, even though they have gotten quite a bit better this year compared to where they used to be. He's throwing a little bit harder now. The pitch shapes are a little bit different, so he's got better movement on those fastballs. It's still not great, but it's better than it used to be. I'm almost pretty certain that that's probably what the Brewers are seeing here. They're seeing a guy who they think is trending in the right direction. Matt Arnold said that they liked him as a draft prospect going back a few years when he was in high school. So it seems like this is a guy where the Brewers like what he's able to do. I'm guessing they like the way he's trending right now. Their stuff models probably like the arsenal a good bit, or at least how it can fit in with their defense and with the way that they try to develop their pitching. So it's another long-term project for them, but at least for now, he's also going to be tasked with filling a couple innings in the short term as well starting this afternoon.
Jack Stern, Brewers beat writer for Brewers Fanatic, also host of the Brewers Fanatic podcast. Jack, what's been your impression from what you've seen with the bullpen this year, specifically guys like Hudson, Abner Uribe, Trevor McGill, and company?
I mean, you can't complain too much about the work on the back end of that bullpen. They've been pretty solid so far. I think especially when you look at Trevor McGill, I think some of the outings that we've seen from him so far, he's been about as dialed in as I've seen him. Abner Uribe has been a really good story, too. He was kind of the wild card going into this year. He served that 4-game suspension, and now he's come back looking really sharp. He's been in the strike zone a lot. Seems like he's had the emotions under control a little bit more, and those are big steps that the Brewers are going to need him to take this year if he was going to work his way back into that high-leverage mix, and so far so good on that front. Ryan Hudson hasn't been the sharpest. He's been battling the control a little bit. The velocity has been a little bit inconsistent, but when he pitched in Colorado earlier this week, the stuff did look a little better. He was especially getting the velocity back on the breaking ball that we saw last year, and I think that's a big key for him as well, not just how hard is he throwing that fastball. He's added a couple of new pitches this year as well. We've seen him mix a sinker in so far this year, so trying to find some other ways that he can get guys out. But, just all in all, the bullpen has always been a strength for the Brewers. I don't see any reason why that wouldn't continue to be the case, even without Devin Williams, who they traded to the Yankees over the offseason. This is something that the Brewers have always been really good at. They've been really good at developing relievers, really good at getting that group to eat some innings and keep them in games and take wins to the finish line. That's been the case so far, and I would imagine it would continue to be the case moving forward. Things are looking overall pretty good on that front.
Of the pitchers we have yet to see make their debuts this season, Tobias, Quintana, Woodruff, Ashby, and such, if you had to pick one that you think would make the biggest impact for this ball club, who would that pick be?
I think I'm going to say Jose Quintana. This is a guy who has proven that he can be durable, proven that he can eat a lot of innings. He's not going to be the flashiest pitcher out there. But I think at this point in his career, he knows what he needs to do to get outs. He's been around a while. I think there's a pretty high floor there, just as a guy who you can plug maybe into the middle or the back end of a rotation, and he can give you 5 innings almost every start. I think there's something to be said for that. And when you talk about some other guys like Myers, Woodruff, Ashby, especially Woodruff, Ashby, Hall, those types, guys who are either injured right now or coming off of injury or both. In Brandon Woodruff's case, we're not still quite sure exactly how this stuff is going to look when he gets back on a mound for a regular season game. We've seen flashes of it in spring training, but it's still not quite where it was before. So it's a question of how much of that is he going to get back? Are the pitch shapes going to be the same? The movement on his fastball is something that he's kind of been dealing with, trying to correct it a little bit. So not entirely sure what they're going to get from him. Not entirely sure what you're going to get from Aaron Ashby when he's ready to go, or DL Hall. Tobias Myers was a great story last year. You got to be able to see, though, if he can follow up what he did. That's going to be a tall order for him once he's healthy. I think just looking at this entire mix, when you look at the consistency that Quintana's had over the past few seasons, as a veteran, as a guy who's historically been very durable, I think that's the guy who honestly has the likeliest potential of making a pretty solid impact, even if he's not always the flashiest arm in that rotation.
When everybody's healthy with this pitching staff, the way he's pitched the last couple of outings, does Chad Patrick, should he still have a role, or what is that role with him, assuming everybody comes back and they're healthy and at full strength with that starting rotation?
Yeah, I mean, even if they have guys who come back, you're always going to have needs at some point in that rotation, whether you get into a long stretch of schedule where you're going to need someone to come up and make a spot start. Postponements happen throughout the season. You're going to play doubleheaders at some point. You need an extra starter for those a lot of the time. Call up the 27th guy on that roster. There's going to be opportunities for him to pitch, and even if that's coming out of the bullpen once in a while too, when they want to cycle out some fresh relievers just to replenish that bullpen a little bit. If he performs, there's going to be innings for him, and we've seen it before. Like, I don't think anybody would have guessed that Tobias Myers would have worked as many innings as he did for the Brewers last year. There's going to be openings. It's always a matter of if guys are able to pitch well enough to take them. Patrick's off to a good start. I think he's got to continue working on some things. He's probably not going to get away with as many walks as he has so far, but certainly can't complain about the results for him. If he throws the ball well, there's going to be opportunities for him. The Brewers are going to find a way to get him in there. And even if they do get a lot of that depth back, there's still going to be chances for him to pitch innings. I'm not especially concerned about that, but he's just got to continue proving himself here these next couple chances he gets right now.
Jack, before I let you go, I want to ask you about Rhys Hoskins. You know, we've talked about some of the offensive players who've been off to a really good start, like Sal Frelick and obviously Jackson Churio and Brice Turang, and then Contreras and Yelich hitting home runs in back-to-back days here. But, you know, Rhys Hoskins, maybe a little bit of a slow start. I know it's only 2 weeks in, but is there, you know, a little bit of concern from what we've seen so far from Rhys Hoskins, or is it still way, way, way too early to be talking about that?
I'm not getting too worried yet. I think that he's actually simply better swings on the ball than he's had so far. Not getting it on the barrel yet, which is where you want it to be, but he is hitting the ball hard. On contact, he's drawn some blocks. I don't think there's any reason to be too alarmed yet. Like I said, he was coming off a rough season last year, coming off of a knee reconstruction surgery, so it is going to be something to watch continue moving forward.
You know, can he start to get some of the mobility back, get some of the strength back, just have things looking better with the swing? I think it is a little better than last year. And again, some stuff under the hood kind of showing that he's trending in the right direction, still has some more steps he needs to take. But, you know, 2 weeks in, it is too early to get too concerned. If we start getting to maybe closer to 2 months out and things aren't picking up for him, you know, then we can start to have a little bit of a different conversation. But he's at least doing some things right that you would hope would either translate moving forward or some things that he can build on, and you can start to see some of those results pretty quickly.
He's Jack Stern, Milwaukee Brewers beat writer for Brewers Fanatic, also host of the Brewers Fanatic podcast. Jack, a big thanks for joining us this morning. This was a lot of fun. Hopefully we can do it again in the future, but again, big thanks for talking some Brewers with us, and hopefully talk to you again soon.
You got it. Take care.
You got it. Jack Stern again joining us here this morning.